All right, welcome back with another episode of D2D Success Stories. Here today with Seth Grenny. Welcome, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So I'll do a little bit of an intro, and then we'll kind of go back to the beginning. So been in door-to-door for, I think, 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, did a whole bunch of years, whole bunch of volume, bunch of history in alarms for, I forget what year you told me, but 6, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah, like 9.
9, okay.
Yeah.
And then transitioned to solar. So, and then currently VP of Sales at Legacy Power. Legacy Power's got a few thousand reps. So Seth does a bunch of stuff over there.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. So let's just kind of, with that as like the preface, let's go all the way back. Tell us, where you grew up, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. Grew up in Orem, down the street.
Yeah.
Are you from Utah?
No, but I've been here a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Orem, family's from Orem, good family. And yeah, I mean, it's the hotbed for door-to-door, Utah Valley. Like, It was all around me. And, I wasn't a huge fan from the outside. I think a big portion of door-to-door gives a bad name to the locals here, like the people outside the industry.
Yeah.
Because there are some bad actors, and we both have experienced that. And so I was pretty resistant to the idea before I got into the industry. But yeah, normal background, that's not true, but normal family, good life as a kid, all that.
Okay. And in Orem, you said, and what'd you do in high school? Like, were you like an athlete or?
Yeah, so high school, I got in a lot of trouble. Wasn't sure how we'd get here, but figured we'd get here. I wrestled, so I wrestled my whole life. And by 8th grade, I'd started getting arrested. So most of my high school, I was like in not my high school. I was like either
alternative
on the run or in like different youth correctional facilities.
Yeah.
So I did a summer at a wilderness program where they just like ship you out to the middle of nowhere, give you like a sleeping bag, a rope, and a knife. And
by the way, are those fun or no?
It was sick, actually.
Yeah, okay. I've always wondered.
Yeah, it was so dope, dude. It was very hard. I was coming off heroin as a 15-year-old when I went there, and so, that's painful.
Yeah, I bet.
And doing that in 120-degree weather in the desert isn't dope. But
is this like down by St. George?
It's in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
In the middle of nowhere, Arizona.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I did a summer there. I did a couple, like my pretty much my junior and senior year at a place called the Utah Boys Ranch that later got shut down because it's pretty rough.
Were they beating the kids or what?
Yeah, it was a bad place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So they're gone.
Yeah.
But had a couple buddies that I grew up with go there, and we had some pretty, we got really close. Going through that together.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, you graduate high school, and what year is this? You're a few years older than me.
Yeah,
graduate 06, okay. And then do you kind of like get into sales or try college or what happens first?
I mean, so after high school, there were 8 more years where it's pretty wild for me.
Okay.
And just kind of a lot of ups and downs. So yeah, I tried college at a couple places. I did a little less than a semester at BYU, Idaho one time.
Nice.
That wasn't the best for me. I
don't think I could handle that. So.
No, yeah, it was. I mean, the wilderness was cool up there.
Yeah.
That was sick, but people were hard for me. A lot of jail time. A lot of arrests. Most of that time was spent kind of just running the streets. In and out of correctional facilities and institutions and stuff like that. And then it was kind of, I really got into door-to-door in 2013. My first exposure was 2010, but 2013 was when I dove in. I was ready to really turn my life around.
Yeah.
And that was when it took off for me. That was when I committed and sent it. And it was I didn't want to do it, beforehand. I had just gotten out of jail, and then like went to a rehab, got kicked out of the rehab, went to a halfway house, got kicked out of that. I was hard-headed, and so it was kind of like a last resort, dude. It was kind of like the idea just came to me. My little brother had been doing it. I'd had exposure to it, and called up a guy that I knew that worked at a little company and said, I've been selling drugs my whole life. Like, I don't have a clean criminal record, but I can sell. I know I can sell. I can work hard, and
I'm comfortable walking around streets.
Oh yeah, everywhere. And so they gave me a shot, and it panned out right away for me. It just made sense. Like, people, I don't think I've ever been like the most intelligent, like the smartest, but like I understand people. I like people, and so I figured it out. Door to door kind of just made sense, and put a life together, and yeah.
So initially getting recruited because of where you were at in your life, and you decided you were kind of a lay down recruit.
Oh yeah,
for these guys at least.
Yeah, it was like, can you hire me even though I have all these felonies?
You were asking.
Yes.
Yeah, got you.
That was, and then even after 3 years at that place, like I was the top rep my first year. Like, I killed it. I did really well. But then once I had some experiences that led me to believe I needed to leave that place, going to the next places, it was like still kind of a push and pull of recruiting, where like I knew I was an asset. I knew they would give me things to come, and I could structure a good deal. But I did also have to make sure that like I could pass background checks, and had experiences where I couldn't.
Well, and then there's like a fair amount of licensing for alarms, isn't there?
Yeah.
Or am I imagining that?
No, I mean, there's a large amount that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Most places don't do like city permits and local permits like that, because it's just hard to manage and pretty hard to enforce for the most part. There's just some towns you just avoid because they'll blow you up. But there's a decent amount of liability. A lot of states require state licensing. There's stuff like that. And so I always had to, depending on the company I was at, some just didn't care, to be frank. But then, by the time I made it to Vivint later on in my career, it was like I had to just choose markets where I could pass background checks until I finished scrubbing my record, which wasn't until like 2017.
Got you. It's funny how it works, dude. You get in trouble, and there's this whole like, even once you're out of trouble, there's this whole transition of like bit by bit, cleaning up the past stuff. You know what I mean? Like you said, scrubbing your record. I had a little trouble experience when I was 18 that I didn't get expunged till I was 26.
Did it pop back up on you?
No, but it was just funny being 26, being like, oh, I have to go think about this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how your past like rears its head at you.
You just have to like go to the courthouses and do all this. I had to hire a lawyer. It was crazy.
Yeah. Cool, man. And you said you're pretty much good instantly, like figured it out.
Yeah, and I don't exactly know why or how it worked out. It just did. I didn't have the greatest like support where I started. I'd never seen anyone get a sale before my first day, and I just got pissed watching the dude not sell, and was like, all right, I'm gonna just go talk to people. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a cell phone, I didn't have like money. I had food stamps. I had 2 black plastic trash bags, and
of like your clothes?
Everything I owned was in those bags.
That's cool. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure there's some kind of lesson there. It's like back against the wall. Like, I'm doing this for freaking food, for gas, whatever,
Yeah.
And a lot of the time you go out to sell, still having some type of home you go back to afterwards, but I'm guessing that was probably like the only home you had when you were selling. Yeah,
they ended up, that first office, we're in Vegas, like I mentioned, and everybody was just doing drugs and partying, going to the strip, like that. No one was working except me, but I was killing it. And so after, this was like a postseason trip. I want to say it had to have been like October or something. And after a month and a half, the regionals called and were like, we're shutting down that office because you're the only one selling and there's like 12 dudes down there. But but we want to make you a manager, and so we're going to have you manage, and if you want to keep selling, you can. And I was like, well, technically I'm on probation, so I wasn't even supposed to be outside of the state. I would have to call this line every morning, and if they called my number or my color, I'd have to get a same-day flight to Utah and go drug test and then report to my PO like I lived in the state.
Yeah.
And so I was like, let me come to Utah. So, yeah, I lived in that first winter of door-to-door. I sold every day. I knocked doors on Thanksgiving. I had some weird experiences selling alarms in Provo on Christmas Eve, and had some success, though. But I lived in an extended stay in West Valley, and
Nice.
Started recruiting my buddies and had a little group of 5 to 10 that winter, and we just lived in extended stays and drove around selling alarms.
It's grindy stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Well, and people don't realize the kind of the same concept as I was talking about like sweeping up behind yourself with legal trouble, but also with being broke. It's like you got to have a place to stay so that you can live there and make money, but then paying nightly for the extended stay or whatever isn't as economical as having at least someplace.
No.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just this like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It was
trying to get
gnarly,
out.
dude. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have options though. Like I couldn't pass a credit check. I
Yeah.
had no credit. I never borrowed money, and I had a very bad criminal background that at the time was recent, and so that you can't get a place to live. You're like even in the hood, like you can't get places to live. So I didn't have a house of my own until right before summer that year. And it was with my regionals. I moved into their house. And, that was the only option I had for years, the whole time I worked there. And then I had to move. Then I had to go back to the hood, which I didn't mind. But, yeah, once I left that company, I had never made that connection. Then I went to Rose Park, and that's where I lived for the next several years again,
Did you start having a lot of money while you were still living in the hood?
Yeah.
Probably kind of a funny experience.
I've been there before, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was different. It was legal. No one could kick in my door and take it from me. So,
Yeah.
It was cool, dude. I was able to do some good and help some people, and I liked it. I've always felt more comfortable there than in upscale neighborhoods, like whatever the purpose, even outside of Utah. I really shouldn't in reality. I shouldn't, but I just do when I'm in, the hoods. And
Makes you feel a little grounded some kind of
like
way.
it. Yeah, it's just a place where I think it bothers, like violence and danger don't bother me as much as judgment and like not fitting in.
Right.
And so no one's judging anyone around there for the most part. Everyone's just trying to get through, So.
Right. No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, talk about. So, I mean, your second year, you become a manager then?
First year, yeah.
Yeah.
30 days in.
Oh, 30 days in.
Yeah.
Like through the winter.
Yeah, I was the worst manager of all time for years. The worst, dude.
Sounds like it just kind of got thrown together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my team was gnarly. My team was like almost all felons. A lot of fist fights. Stories you wouldn't believe. I had several reps die from different things in housing, and those were some wild days for sure.
Yeah.
No murders, in case I made it sound like someone got killed in my housing. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, their own
overdoses,
stuff.
suicides, yeah.
Got you. And I mean, do y'all just kind of slowly scale up, or how did the next couple years go?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I also was kind of just growing up. Like I started doing drugs when I was 12, dude.
Right.
And, I'm in my mid-20s now, figuring this out. I've got weird relationships with my biological family and grew up with other families and so I had a lot to learn. And so it was like as I grew as a leader, like I kind of also just turned into a man over the years, and it took a lot of years. I grew slowly, but yeah, the org got significantly bigger by about 3 years in. I learned that I had to have some flexibility. I had to be open to other types of people, like working with people I didn't grow up with, stuff like that. I learned that I couldn't, I knocked doors for 12 hours a day. It's just like I didn't know why I wouldn't, when it was like there's no limit on how much I can make. I can sell as much as I want. People are awake from 8 to 8, so I'll just go. Mm-hmm. And so I mandated that, and I would like lock the housing for years, and no one could get back in until I was home, which was usually 9 or 10 at least at night. And then I'd lose every rep and wonder why, So I learned those lessons. I think I had the basics out of the way 3 or 4 years in. And then where I really developed was Vivint. I'd say if I had to like succinctly describe it, I developed more in the maturity of understanding. I mean, frankly, that I'm not a drug dealer in the drug world anymore, and I'm like in the business world now. It took me a couple companies to go through where I like expected these things just didn't operate how I was used to. Mm-hmm. And I got mature enough by the time I went to Vivint to say, I'll take less per account. I can see a bigger picture. I can see a vision here. I understand growth. I understood the value of like developed and talented leaders. And then Vivint is kind of where I turned into a more developed actual leader.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And just to unpack that for people listening, you say you take less per account, but that's, in return for the support the org offers.
Yeah.
The admin and the ops and the training, whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're paying for it. And so I'd come, I went from the little dealer little company, then I had my own sub dealer where I was making sick money per account on my own deals and even good overrides. All my guys were making good money per account, but I had so much to do that I couldn't put much volume together, outside of my own personal production, which always stayed, aggressive. But by the time I got to Vivint, I understood that, like, man, if I had someone doing swag and cool competitions and people actually showing me how to do things I don't know how to do, rather than me having to do the wrong thing 45 times before I figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. Like, I saw the vision and I got what I paid for at Vivint, dude. It was a good experience. It didn't end the best for me, but it was a good experience.
And around when is this? This is like 15, 16?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool, dude. Cool. What was your big year production wise in alarms?
Personal or organization wise?
Both.
Organization was just less than 5,000. Personal, I was always over 300 myself.
Nice.
Every summer, so
it's huge. I've never done alarms, but I have figured out about what's huge, what's medium, what's bad, and I know that's huge.
Yeah, it was good, dude. I had really good leaders.
Yeah. Cool. And then, talk about like transitioning from alarms to solar.
It was kind of the easiest thing on the face of the planet, to be honest. Like, it was, I was good at alarms, like a 300 account rep. You're like top, I don't know, 1%, higher than that even. Okay. When you're consistent. But like, there were a lot of dudes better than me at Vivint, way better on personal, on volume, on everything. And, I know there's some ego here, but I think I was the best ever to do it on the doors at Solar. I really do. Like, what I did that first year, never seen someone replicate it. I just haven't. And
what did you do?
And I've looked. 232 personal installs with no setters, though. So
all self-gen.
Yeah, all self-gen. And so, the setter-closer thing, it's a superior model. We were talking about that before the podcast, for sure. For most people, but you just don't see. I made $2.1 million on deals that I sold and installed myself. I had an almost 90% pull through on deals I sold and installed myself.
Wow. Was there a lot of override built in there?
No, dude.
You made 2.1 or 2.3?
Yeah, 2.1 in
2.1 in just commissions. Just
my overrides were like another 150 grand. Like, I didn't really run it.
You basically commissioned $2 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I know that sounds cocky. That's not my goal. What I'm trying to say is, well, for sure it's cocky. I'm cool with that. But like, What I'm trying to say is I think I was built more for the solar cell. Like it made more sense to me. The alarm thing, I was good. I mean, I could switch an alarm out in 20, 30 minutes and be done with it. I'd do 3 like every single day. I had that down. But solar just kind of made sense to me. Like I enjoy building relationships with people, and you get to do that in solar. You get to spend some time. You get to like, you'll have deals where you're in a house 4 or 5 hours, and like it's draining, it's tiring for sure. But you also didn't waste 4 or 5 hours. Where in alarms, if I was in a house, I mean, I don't think I ever was, but if I had been in a house 4 or 5 hours, I'd be like, dude, I could have sold 5 more deals in that period. I'd be going nuts.
Yeah.
Whereas with solar, the thing, and I sold at a high price per watt. I was averaging 10 grand a deal. And so it made sense. And I felt like it was a fair, like, I'll spend as much time as they want here. I'll make sure they understand everything thoroughly. I'll explain every line of the contract. I'll get to know who their kids are. I'll know their dog's favorite treat. Like, I'll spend that time because I was making the money that it's like, it just made sense.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And seasonality, timing was a huge part of it for sure. Like, the industry and the markets have changed dramatically since solar's become a thing. And, that's indisputable. And I still haven't seen someone go out and do 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, no sick days, no vacations, like, and then have that kind of return from it. So I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, let's talk about the long hours, because you've definitely got some, what would you say, like longevity, some fortitude in doing that for that long.
I call it an addicted personality, but you can frame it any direction you want it.
Yeah. What do you attribute that to? I mean, addictive personality.
Yeah. Like, that was my whole life. That was my identity. That was for years. All that I was work. But I think I'd attribute it to like how bad my life got. We didn't go super into depth into it, and we can, or we don't need to. But like it got super gnarly, dude. That day, the last day that I had done drugs before I decided to really turn my life around in 2013. I was detoxing off of heroin, cocaine, and benzodiazepines, which is extraordinarily painful. I was in jail in the hole. I had like fought the cops, so they took my clothes, they took my little sleeping mat. I'd been tased that day. I didn't sleep for 30 days, like, was out of my mind. Like, it was super, super rough, right? Mm-hmm. And then you fast forward through the couple months of whatever happened in between to selling alarms, and just this feeling walking out the door my first morning and like knowing I can go do whatever I want, I can make whatever I want, it's legal, the government can't take it from me, like. And then not only that, but then I got to bring my homies in to do the job with me. Like, that feeling, dude, and then going to other markets, being places like Florida, all over the country, is just like, wow. Like, I didn't feel like I deserved it.
Yeah, it's just perspective, right?
Yeah. I just lived in this state of gratitude for a long period of time, and I think it really was like gratitude. If I had to put one word to it, it was just, I was so grateful that my life had changed. I don't know why I made it out. I have buddies doing life in prison, like, and I'm making 6 figures my first year. It was, so I just gave it everything I had. I didn't know why I wouldn't. And the other thing too, this, like, you're a big dude. You spend a lot of time in the gym, clearly. Like, as soon as that becomes your norm, you're uncomfortable on your rest days. Like, on the days you're not in the gym, you get uncomfortable. It's the same thing with the doors. I was a year-round guy most of the time, and so any day that I didn't knock, I was uncomfortable. It became very normal. It was reality. It was all I knew, right?
Yeah. I on the bouncing back from the drugs and all that type of, obviously that's like, to a lot of people listening, that's going to be kind of an extreme example, but honestly it can apply to anybody. It's just like, have you done worse? Has it been worse than this before? And I think that's where a lot of door-to-door guys get messed up in the head, is they act like the job is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Some of their cases, maybe they're unfortunate that it is the worst thing they've ever done. And that's a bummer. I think that's a bummer.
That is a bummer. Yeah.
You know, it's because they're just going to look at it wrong.
Life's probably going to be hard if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, I've never done the jail thing, but I've certainly had much worse jobs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you get in, you're just like, wow, this is incredible. I'm so grateful.
It's really just how you frame it, dude. It's what, and I have this conversation with guys all the time when they get in their heads. Thinking about knocking doors, for sure, the worst thing in the world. But knocking doors, let's go through what it actually entails. Can you walk around on your feet? Okay, well, I'm probably worse off than you. I don't even have like a normal right leg. Like, you're just talking to people. Does that hurt physically? Like, it's hot. Okay, like it's hot. Yep, you sweat. Can you shower at the end of the day? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've never understood. I've pushed myself and I've had hard times, but I've never understood how you get so in your head that you can't just get off your ass and do the job. It just doesn't make sense to me.
My business partner has this little analogy he always uses. He says, imagine he likes to gamble, right? He's like, so, there's all these different games with their different odds.
Yes, I know.
If the one thing happens, you win. If the other thing happens, you lose. He says, but imagine a game where if you win, you make a couple grand. And if you lose, nothing happens. I mean, maybe the worst thing that happens is the dealer calls you a dumbass. Yeah,
I like that.
In this comparison, that's the homeowner.
I've never heard that. And that's actually a sick analogy.
So if there was a game where 4 times a day you're going to hit and you're going to make a few $1,000, and the other 46, say you're talking to 50 people today, 46 times he's going to call you an idiot. 4 times you're going to make a couple G's. You stay there all day, right?
Yep.
That's the best game in the casino by far. So anyway.
I like that a lot, dude. Yeah. Can I use that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that. Tell them thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, dude, it's just perspective. It's like, wow, there actually are worse things than this. I'm just, I don't know, being soft today. So you get into solar, murder it your first year, and like you said, minimal override. So you kind of started as a rep or close to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to really figure out the job. Like, there were a large group of people. I didn't really try to recruit. And actually, I'd give different advice to myself. I think a lot of us would in many scenarios looking back. I would have done it differently. But the way I saw it was like, dude, I've got to be the best at this in order to get guys. But I did know after like a week of doing the job, I sold 7 solar accounts my first week. I'm blinders, right? I'm just a sprinter. And so I didn't pay attention to how many I'd sold or anything till I was driving home at the end of my Saturday night and added it up. And it was like, in theory, I had made 86 grand or something if they all installed, which I knew they wouldn't all install. Right. But, and I was just like, what? I didn't know that what would happen is what has happened, because it's been a wild journey beyond like my wildest imagination. But it I did know that, like, I had a lot of friends at a lot of different places in alarms from over the years. I had a lot of friends in like some dark, scary crevices of the world too that I could help, and that I could make some kind of impact with this when I saw the return on time investment, and just the difference in that versus alarms or the buddies that had done pest control or even roofing, like, were the only things I had much exposure to. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, this is, I can really do something here.
And then you just start telling the story, right? It's like,
after like 6 months, yeah. After I was making it up as I went. Like, no one trained me to do solar. I actually still was selling some alarms for a buddy's company and using that to like knock the door at first, because no one taught me a solar pitch.
Oh, you were just like piggybacking solar?
Yeah, I was just like doing alarms and then trying to add a solar. And then I had a buddy from Vivint who'd been doing solar, and he showed me like he works with me, Ali Barber. You mentioned his podcast. Yeah. And he showed me like an actual solar pitch, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. But yeah, I didn't do anything but sell for like 6 months, and then I spent 6 months kind of letting the recruiting do itself, and then somewhere around a year in is where Luke Toon, I had this crazy dude. Installs were so rough. Like, people complain about that. My first install was 4.5 months from the time I sold it. I had been to that house 30 times by the time it installed. Like, babysitting the account. I had the hugest pipeline in the history of solar by the time installs started going. But it's like a year in, somewhere between a year and a half. Luke Toon had seen. I had this. I honestly don't remember. I have a picture on my phone, but it was like $140,000 week and then a $280,000 month or something, and it started to stack really, really big at that point. And he took the Excel remittance report spreadsheet and posted it on social media. And I actually didn't repost it because I was like, I can't. That's so douchey, dude. Like, I can't brag about what I make.
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but then it was like every week from that point on, right? Because installs are dropping now.
Yeah.
And marketing got their teeth in it and made Big Check Friday.
Right.
And it was all legit. It was all me and my people, like the small group I had for a very long time. But we started posting it, and that's when recruiting that really, like, that. I've got to attribute a huge piece of it to that.
So did they first come up with Big Check Friday because they wanted to post one of yours?
Yeah.
Can you claim that one?
Yeah, I have it. It's an Excel screenshot.
Yeah, that's fire. That's fire.
what
We
I made.
actually do that now too. So thank you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
no,
it legitimizes. I mean, and I've seen proof from
Yeah.
competitors that they just make it up, which is really stupid, because the
gross.
reps. I mean, how's the rep going to trust you if you're like lying about what they made?
Yeah.
I only know a couple doing that, but it, as douchey as it is, and I can still stand on that. It is, but it's also, when I first started, the reason I was so resistant to door is I didn't trust these guys, and I didn't believe they were making six figures in a summer. I was like, maybe they're making 50 grand. I'll go do it for that.
Yeah.
And it legit, coming from a company, now it's legit. It's like, dude, they're backing that you made this.
I think you can at least like mitigate the douchiness too. Try to do it humble. Like, it's like instead of making it all about like, look at my money, it's like, y'all know me. I'm a normal guy. This is what this opportunity can do.
For sure.
For a normal guy, you could do it yourself. You understand what I'm saying.
It is. And
Yeah.
and you can, it's up to each person, like, why are you posting it? Is your why that you want to flex on people, or is it that you want to attract people, or is it that you just want to like show that it's possible? And I don't know. But I mean, obviously I'm used to it now. I post, 30 of them every Friday. So
Yeah. It's awesome. That's awesome. And that just lit the recruiting on fire.
Yeah, that legitimized it. I hadn't really been telling people or trying to recruit, and so the first like wave, the first year or so, where recruiting really, really got crazy, was just all the people I knew from alarms who actually knew me calling me and being like, dude, is that real? And I would just be like, yeah, I'm going to be on doors tomorrow. I'll fly you out. There was a hotel by my house, and I did the same thing with every single person. I would just fly them in. I would either pick them up before the gym early in the morning or before doors. We'd start before 8 a.m. and we'd knock together until after 8 p.m. And they'd watch, and we'd walk out of the house, and I'd say, I just made 8,000. I just made 13,000 on that if it installs, and my pull through is 87%.
Yeah, and they're watching, and they're just like, yeah, Seth's good, but if I even knock down 80% of the ones he does,
exactly.
Then
That was the thing. Like,
bang.
I didn't have any crazy. I mean, I had a buddy I spent a lot of time knocking with. Neither of us were. There wasn't anything insane happening. It was just the amount of time that I was willing to put in, and then building like trust with customers to the point where, it is. Vegas is a crazy competitive market, so you have to retain your deals, and building trust to the point where the customer will at the very least call you when someone else knocks their door or tries to steal your deal from a permit or something.
Yeah. By the way, just before we move on from the Big Check Friday thing, I don't remember which episode it was, but that's been shouted out from like a pest control point of view on one of these episodes. Some guy was talking about losing reps. He was like, Yeah, and then in 2020, and
Oh.
that's when Legacy started pushing their Big Check Friday. We're losing everybody, and so
That was
anyway.
the year we were talking about that with the setter closer. Remember, I told
Yeah.
you I picked up a group. It was probably that guy. I feel bad. I didn't. It was never. I've never wanted to, like, for the most part, like, destroy people. But it was. I mean, you're gonna go knock doors all day.
Mm-hmm.
It's in everyone's best interest. Just do what makes you the most money. It's a
Got
hard
to.
job.
Yeah. No, can't blame a guy. Anyway,
That's funny.
That is funny. I'll
Yeah, you got to.
I'll figure out which episode it was and send it to you. Yeah,
You got to send me that.
that's funny. So talk about kind of the transition to being a leader at Legacy, because I'm sure there was kind of intermediate steps there, manager, divisional, regional, whatever y'all call them, but now you're VP over a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, it's in our industry, you do the job that you want before you get the title, before you get the role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have, like, ambitions or really plan to be where I am. But, it was just all this timing of, like, the Loan Pal, which is now Good Leap, had just come out with this 20-year, 4.99% interest loan that disrupted the game.
Yeah.
And no one at Legacy did loans. No one. And no one knew how. People thought they were shady.
Y'all were doing leases.
100% leases with
Gotcha.
Sunrun.
Okay.
And, I had learned to do loans with my buddy Lee. And, and I vetted them both out and was like, what would I sell my parents? A loan. So I got, I brought loans. I made them a thing, and I showed you could make good money on them, and I showed how to do them, and I did them right. I didn't, my customers were happy. They got what I told them to get.
Yeah.
And
just as a side note before we move on too, Lee was outside your org at this time, right?
yeah.
Just a testament to having friends, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to introduce something new to the pool that if
Yeah.
y'all were all closed off, you wouldn't have had.
For sure. Dude,
Yeah.
I've always, I don't care where people work. I was on the phone trying to help one of my fiercest competitors navigate a complicated interpersonal situation last night for hours. Like, the reason I've liked this career and kept coming back when it's been so ruthless to me so many times is just because the relationships we get to develop, they're different.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, Lee and I have been family for like 10 years now. We work together again, and yeah, he owned his own solar dealer. He's making way more per account than I was when I came to Legacy, and it came full circle. Now he's killing it here.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. So you figure out loans.
So yeah, it was a couple years down there. I installed 232 that first year. Year two was like mid hundreds, 136. I want to say. As the org started to grow, I started to have less and less time. There's like 100 dudes in the office, like stacked the whole time, and so I was busy with that.
Where are you selling?
Vegas.
Vegas, okay.
And then, by end of year two, I was in Utah and Arizona as well.
Gotcha.
And then the call came in, and Doug asked me to be the vice president and come back to Utah. And it's kind of a funny story because I had like built this house in Vegas. I'd actually built it to be near my regional at Vivint. We were close. And I think it was the next day after Doug called me, I got in my car and drove to Utah, and I moved into an extended stay in Sandy right down the road.
Hell yeah. Back to the roots.
The Residence Inn, yep.
Yeah.
But it was Sandy, better than West Valley, dude. I was in I don't even remember what it was called in West Valley. That thing's shitty. But, I moved into an extended stay in Sandy, and I was there for probably 2 months before I found a rental house. But and they were like surprised when I just walked into the office. But, I had the privilege to attach myself to Doug's hip for a couple years there, the first couple years up here. And, that's what I don't think I like have this extremely well-developed skill set or anything like that, but I grew so much just watching Doug. I learned well from watching.
Mm-hmm.
And, I learned how to conduct myself in a professional environment. I was pretty rough around the edges still before I moved back. I had a really gnarly temper that I didn't even see the value in trying to like harness. And, the way I dress changed. I dressed more professionally quickly. Like, I changed a ton. I learned a lot from him. I spent a good amount of time with Luke Toon and learned a lot about managing different personality types and being a more empathetic leader and like understanding other people. I was pretty like, for the whole time, I was just pretty like, if you can't do what I expect you to do, like, I don't care. You're not worth my time. I could go make this much money by knocking a door, so get out of here.
Right.
I diversified a lot. So yeah, dude, I worked the same type of hours. Actually, the hours had increased as the org grew. I would start taking calls and making calls at 6 in the morning on my way to the gym. And, I'd finish at 11 or 12 most nights. And I'd expect responses. Like, we were using multiple installers at that point. So I'd be texting the CEO of other installers at 6 in the morning all the time. And
That's how I am too. It's one of my toxic traits. I don't have boundaries.
yeah, well, it's a gift and a curse, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you kind of need that to be at the top tier, and then finding balance is I would say impossible. But yeah, it was intense. It was good. I grew a lot being at corporate and changed.
So, something that always kind of interests me, because again, y'all have, a few thousand heads, right?
It's a big company.
Especially in like these giant solar companies, some of the giant pest companies. I feel like there's a fair amount of like politics. I mean, high level dudes will like leave and take a whole region, and then vice versa. You guys will take a whole region. Like, how do you? I don't want to say how do you like stay friends, but like, just talk about navigating that, like maintaining the loyalty of your closest dudes, but also maybe if they leave, not burning bridges. Talk about some of that.
That's a good one, because that's been.
I know that's one of those ones people don't want to talk about on podcasts, so let's just do it.
Yeah, I'm good. It's been the one that I've learned the most in the last like 12 months, in the last year. And I won't get super specific because I don't want to, like, everyone would know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I've been on both sides of that over the years, and I've handled it both well and poorly. Earlier in my career, I was on the receiving end of multiple times where I still feel like people were extremely unethical to me, and it was pretty one-sided, like right and wrong situations. I was done wrong. And then now over the years have been on the receiving end of what I feel like is people doing wrong, but I'm the leader instead of, people stealing money from me as someone underneath them. And what it's taught me is that, like, the reason for doing the job for me has changed a huge amount over the last couple of years. The income that I made, I mean, I don't think I can really say I deserved that kind of money. Like, I earned that kind of money in it. And, the 2022, I made like $5 million. I did, 47 megawatts. And at that point, like, you don't need any more money.
Yeah.
That, it's changed. I didn't know what had changed and how. And it was this year that I got some of the best takeaways from experiences of people leaving and keeping their relationship, where I have always been good at staying friends with people I compete against, whether I have a vested interest or not, whether I think I'll work with them in the future or not. But what I've had to walk myself through is I had some experiences with people where I feel like it was, I know it was really hard for some of the people really close to me to leave. And actually, I don't think they left in a good way. when I've left places, I've told them, I've given them months to fix it. And that's strategically not the smartest thing. You can get cannibalized for doing that, but
Right.
it's just how I move. And that wasn't done for me. I didn't receive a courtesy, and I had a lot going on in my personal life. So I got the opportunity to take a look at some situations where I had accountability too. And I got to say, like, I've preached this, like, relationships first over work and care about people more than money for so long, that can I look at a situation where I feel like I was wronged by someone, and can I honestly say, like, I'm willing to move past that, because I'm not perfect either. I may not have done exactly what this person has done, but I've done some bad shit in my life. And
That's a tough one, dude. It's a tough one for me too, because it's like, yeah, I don't, how would I put it? I'm on a crusade, like, a lot of the time. Like, I'll be like, yeah, no, like, I'll totally stay friends as long as you've acted honorably.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, then you die. Like, but then it's like, well, is that even 100% correct?
But if you acted honorably your entire life,
exactly.
in every situation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the tough one, dude. That's the tough one.
So it was like a 2-day thing for me, where I was angry. I wanted to retaliate. And this was the biggest one. I've never had one like this. My group, the core, most of them have been with me like 10 years or more. Like, we're loyal.
Your boys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was hard. But I had done a ton wrong, dude. As a leader, I had so many. And so I had to just say, like, what do I really care about? What's really the priority? And I've been friends with people, many of them, too long to let something as, like, trite as money ruin a relationship. Like, and if you do, then I think your priorities are out of whack. Like, money is not the end all be all. I have the luxury. I've been living in abundance a long time, and so I do get to have the luxury of saying, like, it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't change all that shit you hear that everyone thinks is completely false. But it actually doesn't change how you feel. One of the things that does change how I feel is being around someone I love, spending time with someone I love. And so if what I have to do is be okay with being wronged out of some money to forgive someone, you probably don't make the same mistake twice. You don't expect them to act differently next time. But you got to be willing to move past it. And I think I've done a good job of that over the years, and especially in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, even if the conclusion you draw is to be a workaholic, it can be for intelligent reasons. It can be for, I'm going to do this for 14 years, 15 years, because I believe that the following 40 will be so much better in a way that more than compensates me for the 15 years.
Exactly.
That could be a person's reason.
Well, and that's the opposite of what I did, right? Yeah. All I did was work and sacrificed all the other aspects of life for that, with no end in sight, with no plan to ever stop, no matter how much I made, no matter what I did. That's what like, probably the one thing that I would try to teach anyone that I can, to just, if you're going to do it, just know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't look back after 13 years and be like, oh shit, that's all I did was work.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that. Well, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah.
If our listeners want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
Instagram is Seth.Grenny. Facebook is Seth Grenny, Grenny.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.